So the activity today is learning about context clues, and we're going to look at three specific types of context clues that you might encounter um, in order to kind of prepare for the novel that we're going to be reading. A lot of times when an author uses an unfamiliar word, they're going to provide some kind of clue in the sentence or in the paragraph or on that page that gives you an idea what it means, okay, that backs it up. And Dickens wrote this way. He wrote for people at all levels of education and reading ability, and so he built in ways to understand what he was talking about, even though he used some words that would be unfamiliar. So we want to make you aware of these so that you're coming into it with the tools to understand. The types of context clues that we're going to look at today are context clues that use examples to help you understand the meaning of the word, antonyms, and ones that use synonyms. Let's take a look. So the first type of context clue is an example. In other words, the author is going to provide somewhere near the unfamiliar word examples of what it means. You can look for trigger words that are going to kind of show you and give you an idea of what to look for. If you see the surrounding sentence or paragraph saying things like such as or including, that might tip you off that those are going to provide examples of the unfamiliar word. Let's take a look at one sample. So this sentence says the river was full of noxious materials such as cleaning agents from factories and pesticides from the nearby farms. This is a sample that uses examples to define the meaning of the unfamiliar word noxious. So, looking at those examples, take a second and write down what you think the meaning of noxious is based on the context of this sentence. Based on the context of the sentence, the meaning of the word is harmful to health or well-being. So if you had something similar, that it was dangerous or poisonous or bad for you, you interpreted the clues correctly, and the clues were the cleaning agents and the pesticides. So the river was full of dangerous or unhealthy materials such as cleaning agents from factories and pesticides from nearby farms. The next thing I want you to do is create your own sample. So if you look at your handout, there's a set of 3 boxes. The first one has context clues that are examples, and there's a space for you to make a sample one for yourself. So what I want you to do is try and use the word remunerated, which means paid, and I want you to try and create a sentence that uses that word with examples nearby in the sentence or the paragraph, or whatever you choose to write, that would help the reader understand what remunerated means. So use examples of remunerated or paid. Take a minute or two to write a sentence that uses that, and this completed handout will be your exit ticket for the day. All right, you'll notice that after that sample, there's 2 more spaces for another 2 sentences. I'll explain in a minute what you're going to do with each of those. Let's move on to antonyms. The second type of context clue that we're going to look at is antonyms. In other words, the author provides things that mean the opposite of the unfamiliar word as a contrast so that you can understand what it means by looking at what it's not. Looking at an example here, looking at the trigger words, things you might see around the word that would indicate the author is going to use opposites or antonyms. The words but, however, not, instead of, even though. Any of these might trigger you to think that the explanation will come through antonyms or opposites. So let's look at a sample here. The sample says, some think the governor is very astute, but he usually makes unwise decisions. So we have the unfamiliar word astute, the trigger word but, and the context clue unwise decisions. Based on the context of that sentence, take a moment and define astute. Alright, the meaning of astute should be something similar to wise. Again, the sample has provided the opposite, the antonym, which is unwise. And so the meaning of astute is wise. Some think the governor is very wise, but he usually makes unwise decisions. I'd like you to make a sample for this type of context clue as well. You're going to use the word affluent in a sentence. Affluent means rich, someone who has a lot of money. Someone who is affluent has a lot of money. So I want you to describe or create a sentence in which you provide context clues so the reader can understand the meaning of the word affluent using antonyms, or the opposite of that word, something that it is not. Take a minute or two and create that sentence. In the second box where it says type of context clue, antonyms. Alright, let's take a look at our last type of context clue that we're going to examine today, and that is the use of synonyms, words that mean the same as the unfamiliar word. This type of context clue can be triggered or can be indicated by the words and, or the word or, meaning kind of like in other words. Either of these words could lead you to think that the definition is coming close to that unfamiliar word or these trigger words. So let's look at our sample for this one. The sample says everyone has some type of vulnerability or weakness. So, based on the context of that sentence, what is the meaning of vulnerability? Look at the clues and look at the context and look at the trigger words. So in this case, again, they're using a synonym to define the unfamiliar word vulnerability. Vulnerability means a weakness. So everyone has some type of weakness. For your sample, you'll use the word precocious. Precocious means advanced or gifted. So create a sentence using the word precocious and use those synonyms. That definition there provides you synonyms. Or you can use other ones, but in the sentence provide that context, and you may use those trigger words that would show what does precocious mean based on the rest of your sentence. Take a minute or two, create that sentence. So those are the three types of context clues that we're going to examine today. Examples, antonyms, and synonyms. They can all be used to provide context and meaning for unfamiliar words. This is just a brief introduction to help you look for those. The rest of your assignment is going to be, here. To complete this handout, you should have already done the samples for each of these types of context clue. I want you to provide two more, and you can use this word list that has unfamiliar words or words that may be a little strange and their meaning underneath. I want you to use those types of context clues You can pick whichever words you'd like and use the context clues here to create an example according to what's indicated. This will be your exit ticket out the door, so you need to have it completed in order to leave class. Good luck.